one question that I've asked both the Minister and Khalid from REDF is about risk, is about regulation. It's been a theme this morning. And of course the CMA is one of the two key regulators in this market. And I know that you and your team and the management of the CMA, the leadership, keeps its eyes on these things all the time. But let's start by looking at what the role of the CMA is in the development of housing finance in the kingdom. What do you see as your role, your priorities, and your objectives?
Thank you, Richard, for the introduction. Let me tell you first about the CMA strategy. It's the 2017 up to 2020, which is in line with the NTP and the Vision 2030. The strategic plan has 6 themes and with 16 strategic objectives, and as initiator, as an enabler, you have 107 initiatives. Part of those are encouraging investment and enabling financing. As a result, CMA is working now to develop when it comes to asset management industry, working on introduction with our partners, market participant, and SAMA to develop the financing funds. Also working on endowment funds, and one of the projects that we're working on is developing a platform for all funds in Saudi where a subscriber can subscribe or redeem their units.
But I mean, specifically within the housing area, are there any initiatives that the CMA is looking at housing? I mean, does it involve REITs? Does it involve capital markets products? I mean, the market is nascent for this type of thing. Where do you fit into both the encouraging of it and the enabling of it, of prudence?
In 2016, or since 2016 up to date, there were 13 approved REITs, which they raised 10 billion riyals. Out of which, after a year, as a new product, any new financial instruments needs time to maturity. As a result, and how can we look into that? We talk to our market participant, our other government entities, to see what were the gaps, or let's say what areas of enhancement we can put to develop this instrument. So a month ago, as a public consultation, CMA published the revamped real estate traded funds for public consultation to see the feedback and from the public, so we can analyze them and reintroduce the regulation. Also, I would like to highlight, we are looking into revising the real estate investment fund regulations to make it more comprehensive and to serve the market to reach our goals.
What is the difference between a REIT, which is a real estate investment trust, and a REIF, which is a real estate investment fund? How are they different as far as the investor is concerned?
I'm glad you asked this question.
It's a genuine question.
Yes,
I don't know the answer.
Regular real estate investment funds includes all criteria of real estate, including mainly development and income generating. However, if you look at REITs, it is purely income generating funds, looking for trophy assets that have a stable and a stable income from quality assets. And I would just want to highlight that net return of the 10 or 13 approved real estate was average over 6.5%.
So, the main, because there's obviously a difference between real estate, which includes commercial and industrial and logistics, as well as residential, and then housing, which is purely residential. One of the main mechanisms through which capital markets investors participate in residential is through securitization of mortgages. Now, there's the launch of the Saudi real estate refinancing company. I probably mangled its name there. I apologize. Which has already signed, I think, 2 deals to recapitalize, refinance pools of mortgages with some of the banks, and has stated that it intends to issue securities both to fund itself and indeed to move its way. So are you looking as the CMA at this, what they call RMBS, residential mortgage-backed securities, securitized pools of mortgages with cash flows? Is that something on your horizon?
As I mentioned earlier, the REIT now is for public consultation, and we have received many requests for expanding the horizon of the REIT, of not just making it a traditional REIT. Some financing companies also have reached to us through SAMA that why don't we look into mortgage REIT. We are open for new ideas. We're willing to sit together to develop this instruments or financial instruments, or more looking to develop new other instruments that will help the growth of the real estate market.
Mm-hmm. And the investors, I mean, you and I have had these conversations on many stages and also off stages, but it's important not just to look at the way that who issues, but also who invests. Do you feel there's demand from an investor base in the kingdom, both institutional, like the pension funds, Hassan PPA, sovereign funds like PAF and Sanabil, banks, individuals, to gain exposure to the housing story, to the real estate story, from a purely financial perspective?
This is how I look at it. There's, from the capital market point of view, there's a REIT era and there's a before REIT era. Before the REIT, I think the developer or institutional developer were facing some challenges. I'm saying some challenges in selling their large property. On the other hand, REITs fund managers are looking to buy properties that are, as I said earlier, income generating, quality asset, as they say, trophy assets that have stable income, so they can give dividends to the fund investors. Here, developers, and I'm starting to see in it, start to shift their positioning to meet the fund manager's requirement. As I said, because of scarcity of liquidity, they had a hard time, developer, to sell their product. So now where there's a fund manager, there's a liquidity, they meet together. The combination of both will help into changing the landscape of the real estate.
And to go back to the risk point, I mean, there's a whole series of risks intrinsic in real estate. For example, valuations. It's not just credit. It's not just can the person.
I knew you will ask this question.
Yeah,
it's not here.
I know you do.
Okay.
But I'm not specifically talking about valuations. But it's not purely a situation of one person or two people sitting in a room, putting numbers into a spreadsheet and working out. There's a whole chain of different people who need to be trained, need to be professional, need to understand, realty brokers, even down to the individual person that's acquiring the asset to live in. What's the role of the CMA in ensuring true professionalism and understanding across the whole of this ecosystem?
So let's look at it from a holistic view.
That's the word I was looking for.
Funds, forget about REITs, real estate funds. As a requirement in the regulation, it has to, the land or the property has to be valued by two valuators, accredited valuators. So as you said earlier, you have the evaluation, let's say a gray area. We are working closely with the Saudi authority for accredited valuers to try to find a way or to manage the valuation. As a result, CMA and the authority has issued a circular where there's a procedure. If there's a real estate investment traded fund is approved by CMA, they have to announce and make it available for public the valuation report. So this will help into getting accurate valuation, and will keep both government entities aware of the funds, of the real estate funds.
For developers, I know because I'm about to talk to one in a minute, but I saw another one of my developer friends here, again, looking towards instruments like Sukuk to provide liquidity and financing for the development. What's the CMA's position on that? I mean, how important is the development of the primary debt market to support real estate companies? And what do you do in that space to ensure that it's properly regulated?
Real estate funds issue Sukuk?
Well, not funds, but actually just say a company. I'm not going to mention any names, but I mean, you can look at the wall and see who I'm talking about. I'll mention names in 20 minutes. But one of the ways in which a developer can raise capital to build affordable homes is bank debt. Another way is capital markets, is to issue a bond, a Sukuk. And that's where the CMA comes in. Do you see that as being an area for growth in capital markets products over the next few years to support this housing finance initiative?
Of course, to support what you said, CMA issued, I think, 2 months ago, the real estate, the special purpose entities regulation. This will help the companies to issue Sukuk, and the whole regulation, the regulation was initially supposed to be two parts. One part will cover debt and the other part will cover funds, so funds can have their legal entity. The first phase is now out. It was for public consultation. We revised the feedback from the market, and now it will be up and running on April 1st.
And when you've talked a lot, and this is a very good thing, about getting feedback from the market. That can be an interesting process, I'm sure. I'm sure some of the feedback is interesting, unique. How important is that consultation? I mean, do you feel that the market feedback to you really helps you understand their priorities? Because there can, and there should be an element of tension between a regulator and a regulated. Not too much, but you have to stand separate and independent, and you have to look at the priorities of your mandate. So how much attention do you pay? How much value do you get from the insight of the market? Do you feel they're being constructive, or maybe a little bit, trying to talk their own book?
Let me give you a live example. As I mentioned earlier, I think 2 weeks ago, CMA approved the draft of the real estate investment credit fund REITs for public consultation. We did not stop there. Public consultation was, the last day was last Thursday. We had a focus group with the fund managers to listen to them, understand. So we didn't only rely on what is written on their feedback. We wanted to listen from them, see their rationale, because at the end of the day, they are the market, they are the creator of the market, and we are regulator, we facilitate.
Yeah, but you also ensure that, I mean, you know, it's not unfair to say about the financial sectors that sometimes they get a little overexcited and maybe they create products that
You said that.
I said that, yeah, I said it. I'm being very generous here. I mean, I'm not having to go at them. I mean, I'm you know, many of my friends, all of my family are involved in this, but not in Saudi Arabia, I must say. But you know, it has that tension has to be there. But what I'm interpreting you as saying is that the market feedback is important to you, and you rely on it. Okay, we have about 2 minutes left. Does anyone have a question or a comment that they would like to make or ask Hassan? Oh, no, I don't think we do. Okay, gosh, there is a gentleman there. Well done, sir. I'm sorry. Thank you very much. So there's a man coming to you with a microphone. And do ask your question in Arabic if you want. I won't understand it, but ask it anyway.
I hope that both of you can understand English and rest of them can get translation. Okay, my name is Hussein and I work in a real estate development company.
Can you higher your voice, please?
It's very difficult to hear you. If you could put it quite close to your mouth.
Yes, I was saying that I work in a real estate development company, Al Arjan. We have heard participants telling us that the regulator and the participant institutions are working on regulatory framework. One thing that I feel is missing is that, as Mr. Hassan said, that we are encouraging investment. For investment in current economic situation where businesses are feeling pressure, we are introducing some new pressures in the form of white land tax and VAT, which is going to increase actually the cost for ultimate consumer.
Sorry, so you'll need to keep that microphone close.
Sorry.
It's very difficult to hear you, I'm afraid. Maybe if you could come closer, we might...
I will try to keep it close to my mouth.
And if you could keep it into a question, because there's a bit of an echo, which we'll try and sort out. So just make a quick question that we can hear. I'm sorry.
No problem. My question is that, is there anything to help basically companies, the real estate developers, to absorb current pressures in the terms of rising cost and rising regulatory pressures, and to encourage the demand coming from actual consumer, not from NBFIs or banks? That's my question.
Demand for consumers for units or for...
Yes,
okay.
Because it's actually consumer who is going to help this sector. It's not that the bank will buy the product for itself. They actually buy it for the consumer. The demand is really bad right now. Okay. Despite of all the regulations and the new laws coming.
Okay.
Hope I
it's a good question, and it's one that we should definitely answer. It may be more appropriate for the panel discussion,
yes,
because I mean, it's only that I think that encouraging consumers is probably not your area of
Actually, Mr. Hassan suggested that we are trying to encourage the investment in the beginning. So that's my question. Is anything targeted at that direction as well?
Okay, yeah, but I mean, this is a very good question, and it is the entire topic of the first panel, which will be after the coffee break. I'm keeping everybody from, but just quickly to clarify. The CMA's role, you said, is the facilitator. It's not your job to encourage people to do one thing or the other. It's just to make it prudent and safe and sensible. Is that right? You should say that. Sorry, interviewing myself. Right. Okay. But there is another question. Can we try and do something with this echo? AV people? Can we have a microphone to this gentleman? And can we try and do something with this echo? Even if you have to turn the volume down, it's fine. So one more question and then we'll let you have your coffee. Keep your hand up. I think he's behind you. He's coming. He doesn't move very quickly, but he's on his way. Brilliant.
Assalamu alaikum. Ibrahim Al-Alwan, Wathiq Financial Services. Just my question regarding CMA regulation. As we know right now, for the REIT, it's actually a big move, and for sure it helped the market, especially the commercial and industrial. My question actually, what about the housing? Right now we're coming for the housing. What exactly product that the CMA work with developer, with the Ministry of Housing? What exactly that we need product that help or focusing on housing. We can have workshop together with the developer, with the investment banking, to try to find solution, because actually this is one of the biggest challenges in Saudi market. So I believe that CMA role today is also to focus on housing specifically, as they focus, let's say, in the last year for REIT. This is my question.
Okay. If I again, it's difficult to hear. So if I can just summarize your questions, what should or could the CMA do specifically in the housing sector? Is that correct? He's nodding.
Yes. No.
So is there anything you think that the CMA could do in terms of products, in terms of regulations, that not just real estate, but housing? Is there any, when you discuss it with the grouping that the minister is involved and the REDF, does housing specific products come up
As a specific
subsection of real estate?
We look into, as I said, facilitate for fund managers to issue their products, and I think honestly, I'm sorry, I go back to REITs. REITs is an income generating fund and income generating instruments. And if you go and look at the 13 REITs that CMA approved, each one of them except one or two is their portfolio consists of residential
compounds.
Yes.
And multifamily.
Yes, and I think it's only one REIT that hasn't residential.
So it fits into a wider portfolio. I'd like to thank all of our speakers and interviewees this morning for being here, for giving us their time, and for giving us their insights, and specifically, of course, because he's sitting next to me, Hassan Abdullah Alshuaiby from the CMA, for joining us.